Imagine a crisis, not a skirmish, not a regional conflict, a full-spectrum breakdown in global stability. Strategic warning indicators are flashing. Communications networks are being degraded by cyberattacks. Satellite links are compromised. Command centers are hardening their security postures. And somewhere deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, a ballistic missile submarine carrying enough nuclear firepower to end civilization is running silent, cut off from the surface world, waiting for orders that may or may not come through. This is the scenario that keeps defense planners awake at night. Not whether the weapons work, they do. Not whether the submarines can survive, they can. The question is whether, in the chaos of a crisis where everything is breaking down, where communication infrastructure is under attack, where command authority might be fragmented or contested, the National Command Authority can still reach those submarines and issue the orders that maintain control over the most destructive weapons humanity has ever built. The answer to that question is flying somewhere over the continental United States right now. An aircraft that most people have never heard of. An aircraft that carries no bombs, launches no missiles, and will never appear in a highlight reel of air power. But if deterrence fails, if the unthinkable begins to unfold, this aircraft becomes the most important platform in the entire U.S. military arsenal. It's called the E6B Mercury, and it exists for one reason: to make sure the President of the United States can always communicate with America's ballistic missile submarines, no matter what else has failed. The E6B Mercury is operated by the U.S. Navy, specifically by Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron 3 and Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron 4, based out of Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma and Travis Air Force Base in California. The aircraft itself is derived from the Boeing 707, the same commercial airliner design that once dominated long-haul passenger aviation in the 1960s and 70s. But the E6B is not a relic. It's a highly specialized platform that has been continuously upgraded with modern avionics, communication systems, and mission equipment to perform a role that nothing else in the U.S. inventory can perform as effectively. Its mission designation is TACAMO, which stands for Take Charge and Move Out. That's not marketing language, it's doctrine. The E6B's primary function is to serve as an airborne link between the National Command Authority, the President and the Secretary of Defense, and the submarine force. It transmits emergency action messages, the authenticated orders that would authorize the use of nuclear weapons, to ballistic missile submarines that are submerged and operating in communication-denied environments. It can also function as an airborne command post for U.S. Strategic Command, providing survivable command and control if ground-based facilities are compromised or destroyed. This is not a backup system. This is the system. And the fact that most people don't know it exists is exactly how it's supposed to be. To understand why the E6B matters, you need to understand the nuclear triad, the three-part structure that underpins U.S. nuclear deterrence. The triad consists of land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, strategic bombers, and ballistic missile submarines. Each leg has different characteristics. ICBMs are fast and responsive, but fixed in location, which makes them vulnerable to a first strike. Bombers are flexible and recallable, but require warning time to get airborne and are detectable once they launch. Submarines are the most survivable leg of the triad. They operate submerged, hidden in the vastness of the ocean, nearly impossible to locate, track, or target. A single Ohio-class ballistic missile submarine carries up to 20 Trident missiles, each capable of delivering multiple nuclear warheads. One submarine represents more destructive power than most nations' entire arsenals. The submarines are the assured second strike capability. Even if every U.S. ICBM silo is destroyed, even if every bomber is caught on the ground, the submarines survive. They can launch retaliatory strikes weeks or even months after an initial attack. This survivability is what makes deterrence credible. An adversary cannot win a nuclear exchange because they cannot eliminate the submarine force. And as long as that's true, the incentive to strike first is dramatically reduced. But survivability creates a communication problem. Submarines stay hidden by staying silent and staying deep. They minimize transmissions. They avoid predictable patterns. They operate under strict emission control to prevent detection. And when a submarine is submerged at depth, it is effectively cut off from most conventional communication methods. Standard radio frequencies don't penetrate seawater more than a few feet. Satellite communications require the submarine to come shallow and expose an antenna, which increases the risk of detection. In a crisis, when you need to reach the submarines immediately and reliably, those methods are insufficient. That's where very low frequency communication comes in. VLF operates at extremely low frequencies, between 3 and 30 kilohertz, which allows the signal to penetrate seawater to significant depths. A submarine can receive VLF transmissions while remaining submerged, maintaining stealth and continuing its patrol. But VLF has limitations. The signal is slow. It requires enormous antennas, and it requires a transmitter with enough power to send the signal across thousands of miles of ocean. The E6B is that transmitter. It carries a VLF communication system and deploys a trailing wire antenna, a cable that extends miles behind the aircraft as it flies in tight circular patterns. This antenna acts as a mobile VLF broadcast station, capable of transmitting emergency action messages to submarines anywhere in the world. The aircraft climbs, circles, deploys the antenna, and sends the message. The submarines receive it. Command and control is maintained. The E6B doesn't just communicate with submarines. It's also an airborne command post, a survivable node in the nuclear command and control architecture that can operate independently if ground-based command centers are destroyed or compromised. In a nuclear crisis, the E6B can assume command authority for U.S. Strategic Command. It carries battle staff positions, secure communication links to the National Command Authority, connections to early warning systems, and the ability to coordinate the execution of nuclear strike options across all 3 legs of the Triad. If an adversary launches a decapitation strike intended to eliminate U.S. leadership and command infrastructure, the E6B provides continuity. It ensures that the nuclear force remains under positive control, that orders can still be issued, and that retaliation, if authorized, can be coordinated and executed. This capability is part of what makes U.S. deterrence credible. An adversary cannot eliminate command and control by destroying fixed sites, because command and control is also in the air, mobile, hardened against electromagnetic pulse, and continuously available. The E6B is not a single aircraft. It's part of a fleet, and at least one is always airborne, on alert, ready to execute its mission. This is not an exercise. This is continuous operational posture. Right now, somewhere over the United States, an E6B Mercury is flying. The strategic importance of the E6B lies in what it represents to adversaries. The certainty that the United States can always reach its submarines, always maintain command and control, and always execute a second strike if necessary. Nuclear deterrence is built on assured retaliation. The logic is simple. If you strike us, we will strike back, and the damage you suffer will outweigh any possible gain you could achieve by attacking in the first place. For that logic to hold, the adversary must believe that retaliation is not just possible, but inevitable. They must believe that no matter how effective their first strike, no matter how much of the U.S. nuclear force they destroy, the submarines will survive and the submarines will launch. The E6B is what makes that belief rational. As long as the E6B exists and operates, as long as adversaries know that the U.S. can communicate with its submarine force under any conceivable conditions, they cannot assume that a first strike will prevent retaliation. The submarines are hidden. The communication link is survivable. The command structure is redundant. The deterrent is credible. This is stabilizing. It reduces the incentive for a preemptive strike because a preemptive strike cannot succeed in disarming the United States. And when neither side can disarm the other, the rational choice is not to strike at all. The E6B doesn't prevent conflict because it's powerful. It prevents conflict because it guarantees that conflict would be catastrophic for everyone involved. The reason almost no one talks about the E6B is that nuclear command and control is deliberately low profile. The aircraft doesn't carry weapons, so it doesn't generate the kind of coverage that fighter jets or bombers receive. It doesn't look futuristic. It's based on a 1960s commercial airliner design. It doesn't break speed records or perform aerobatic maneuvers. It flies in circles, trails an antenna, and transmits messages. That's not visually compelling, and it doesn't fit the narrative of cutting-edge military technology that dominates public discourse about defense. Nuclear command and control is also an area where the U.S. military is intentionally opaque. Details about capabilities, procedures, and operations are classified. The government does not advertise how it would execute nuclear strike orders or how it maintains communication with the submarine force. The E6B is acknowledged publicly, its basic mission is known, but the specifics are not discussed. And that's appropriate. Transparency in nuclear command and control is not a virtue. It's a vulnerability. But the quiet nature of the mission doesn't reduce its importance. If anything, it reflects the seriousness with which the military approaches this responsibility. The E6B doesn't seek attention because its mission is too critical to be turned into a public spectacle. Modern threats to nuclear command and control are evolving, and the E6B's role is becoming even more critical in a world where space-based and ground-based communication networks are increasingly vulnerable. Cyberattacks against command infrastructure are a persistent concern. Adversaries are developing capabilities to disrupt, degrade, or deny communications at every level. Anti-satellite warfare is no longer theoretical. China and Russia have both demonstrated the ability to target satellites, and in a conflict, early warning and communication satellites would be high-priority targets. Electronic warfare, jamming, and spoofing are tactics that can disrupt radio and data link communications across wide areas. In that environment, an airborne platform like the E6B provides resilience. It's not dependent on satellites. It's not fixed in one location. It's mobile, survivable, and capable of operating independently. If space-based communications are degraded, the E6B can still reach the submarines. If ground stations are destroyed, the E6B can still function as a command post. The aircraft represents redundancy in a system where redundancy is the difference between control and chaos. The E6B is also being modernized. Upgrades to its communication systems, avionics, and mission equipment ensure that it remains effective against evolving threats. The airframe itself, based on the durable and well-understood 707 platform, has decades of service life remaining. This is not a platform nearing obsolescence. It's a platform being sustained and enhanced because the mission it performs cannot be allowed to fail. Wars are prevented not just by the weapons we build, but by the credible control we maintain over them. The most dangerous scenario in nuclear strategy is not deliberate aggression. It's miscalculation, loss of control, unauthorized use, or the breakdown of command during a crisis. The systems that prevent those scenarios, the unglamorous platforms that ensure positive control, reliable communication, and continuity of authority, are as strategically important as the weapons themselves. The E6B Mercury may never fire a shot. It may never be the subject of a dramatic combat narrative, but it ensures that the most destructive weapons ever built remain under control, that deterrence remains credible, and that the logic of assured retaliation, which has kept the nuclear peace for over 70 years, continues to hold. That aircraft circling somewhere over the United States right now, trailing a miles-long antenna, transmitting orders to submarines deep beneath the ocean, is the reason nuclear war remains unthinkable. Not because it's impossible, because it's controlled.